So hi everyone. I'm Clay Redding. I'm actually the creator of the MarkLogic connector for MuleSoft, and hopefully we have a few MuleSoft users in the audience today because they'll be playing a big part of this MDM series that we're hosting over the next few weeks. Currently, I serve as the managing principal engineer within our cloud operations group. But I've worn many hats at MarkLogic, including technical solutions architect, consulting, alliances. And so at any rate, I'm happy to be here today to talk with you about MuleSoft and our partners. Dan Wilson from MuleSoft is also going to be talking immediately after this and giving an introduction to kind of what MuleSoft will be talking about over the next few weeks about master data management and data integration. So let's get started. First things first, I encourage you go have a look at the connector. You can actually get a free trial to MuleSoft if you haven't used it before. Of course, there's the free MarkLogic developer license as well. You can use the two in conjunction then to begin your MDM and Data Hub exploration and journey. If you want, there's a QR code. I know you can't click on any of the links during the presentation. I'm assuming this will be shared later, but if you want to grab it from that QR code now, you can do that. You can grab the connector from the MuleSoft Anypoint Exchange, which is kind of their central repository for connectors, but it's also available on the MarkLogic community GitHub repo. And because my time with you today is going to be fairly limited, and Dan's as well, the two of us together have put out quite a bit of content over the last few years with quite a bit of detail around reference architectures, very much involving master data management, and then, of course, Data Hub orchestration, Data Hub integration, and what have you. Our most recent content was from last summer, where we give a really in-depth view of what I'm just going to kind of gloss over today around a customer 360 as well as healthcare related, a patient 360. So go check that out too if you want more detail about what you're seeing today. So I want to just talk briefly about what makes MuleSoft and MarkLogic such a great pairing. So our partnership with MuleSoft started back in 2018, and while MarkLogic has data integration tools like Content Pump, Data Movement SDK, a few others, if you've used MarkLogic at all to any extent, chances are you've probably been writing some point-to-point code integrations to get data into or out of MarkLogic. And that can be pretty complicated, especially in the case of a customer 360. When you're doing that, you're kind of, for each data source, you're having to get familiar with how to connect, how to query, how to use their APIs, so on and so forth, in order to get that data into MarkLogic. And then, of course, after versions change on various systems, APIs can change. This can actually get very brittle. And it becomes a pattern that, we actually lifted this from MuleSoft. We call it spaghetti integration. It's just a mess of connections going everywhere. So with MuleSoft, they help clean up kind of these integrations via connectors, and we'll be getting more into that. The other thing that really makes MarkLogic and MuleSoft a great pairing is this notion of API-led or API-driven, which is a framework that MarkLogic has put long into practice. If you think back to the diagrams we've been looking at today, Jean-Francois demonstrated a diagram of the entire data hub, right, and the downstream consumers. Well, we think, at MarkLogic about designing from APIs first, kind of the right-hand side of that data hub diagram. And so we use that, as does MuleSoft, to kind of define, the entire architecture of how we want to achieve our data integration. So MuleSoft, like I said, they have scores and scores of connectors available to kind of help get around this fragility of point-to-point integrations. With MuleSoft, each connector technology codes simply to the boundary of their own application. So for example, for the MarkLogic connector, if I'm trying to integrate social media, from sources such as Twitter or Facebook for some reason, okay, I don't need to know how to connect MarkLogic to the Twitter API, to the Facebook API, so on and so forth. I don't need to write any point-to-point integrations. I just use MuleSoft because they already have these connectors. And basically the MuleSoft message bus itself, it standardizes the way that each connector handles the integration between connectors. So really all I have to do as the MarkLogic MuleSoft connector developer is know, how to handle MarkLogic related messaging. I trust that every other connector is doing the same, and that's actually what MuleSoft does a great job of building quality assurance around on their connectors, that their standard message bus can handle this. So specifically, when we talk about a customer 360, one of the things that really intrigued us is, and you'll be hearing this over the coming weeks, the MuleSoft architects really put a lot of great thought leadership into kind of this API first mentality, but especially getting into master data management. They've been really producing a lot of work on this recently. So with our data hub framework, we begin thinking about the APIs that MarkLogic has historically exposed, but then really begin organizing around the notion of APIs that MuleSoft also arranges around, which is the concept of experience APIs, process APIs, and system APIs. And that really helped us organize our own thinking around how we would want a customer 360 data hub to work. So let's focus on the 360 again. So today we're talking about master data management, right? And if we look at the bottom of this diagram, we can actually see we have the notion of customers and our network of applications here, okay? So we have a customer's process API, and then we have several different customer CRM systems. Here we have SAP and Salesforce. So the customer's process API is going to be responsible for accessing the disparate data about the same customer from both SAP and Salesforce. And MuleSoft achieves mastering by basically getting the data out of these systems and transforming that data on the fly to generate a response data format back to their experience APIs. So you can think of this like a layer cake, right? It even looks like a layer cake. So the calls are coming in from the experience APIs, going through to the process APIs, which then call down to the systems. And these APIs work together. So their MDM is actually working kind of in the middle layer as a transformational layer. This happens for every request. And the master data can be cached, but there's a whole lot of transformation going on, and there's a pattern around this where the data hub will eventually come in and help. So when we start to take the entire application into perspective with also not just customers, but shipment and order. So there's transformations going on here. There's transformations going on to then cull together orders and customers. There's transformations going on to cull together all of the different shipments, orders, and customers as well. All of the mastering is involved in every one of those steps, and it's happening on every request. So let's see how the addition of the MarkLogic Data Hub and Smart Mastering helps. So instead of per request mastering with transforms at the process API level, we can use MarkLogic Data Service APIs and the MuleSoft Process APIs to persist mastered data while recording provenance. So the data hub here, the difference is that persistence is involved, of course, using MarkLogic. Doing this, we'll see reduced overhead on mastering transformations and API calls while having a single view of master data both upstream and down. Both MarkLogic and MuleSoft apply security on both data at rest and in flight. They have complementary technology stacks that actually protect the data at every single step of the way. So in this architecture, with MarkLogic kind of in the middle between the process APIs and the system APIs, MuleSoft is used to orchestrate every single bit of this. MuleSoft orchestrates all of the data ingestion into the data hub. It handles all of the harmonization. It even triggers off all of the mastering activities that happen within MarkLogic. The data hub, MarkLogic here, is actually transparent. So being transparent here means that we can actually add and master new source data systems And that mastering can then be isolated entirely to the data hub. So instead of having to go write new processing logic in MuleSoft, we can do that processing logic in MarkLogic and have the benefit of having it persisted and secured. So existing MuleSoft APIs don't have to change, and they can continue to be used for synchronous operations to source systems of record without involving the data hub. So in the aggregate here, you get an integrated, secured, mastered data corpus that both upstream and down can be used to drive operational and analytic workflows. So in summary, and then I want to turn it over to Dan so he can do a more proper deep dive into MuleSoft. MuleSoft serves as the system of integration and connectivity. It brings APIs together, it does all of our orchestration together, helps us gather our thoughts around APIs. MarkLogic, however, serves as the system of engagement. That persisted data is actually going to help all of the analytical and operational access, both upstream and down. The calls will still, of course, be going through MuleSoft, but MuleSoft, working in conjunction with MarkLogic, helps drive the entire business. Together, we complement each other in getting the simplified value out of data. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Dan. Thanks, everyone, for letting me speak.
Thanks so much, Clay, and thanks for everyone for the opportunity to chat a bit today. It's a morning for me on the East Coast, but so good morning or good afternoon for folks on the call. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen as well, and thanks, Clay, for that great initial overview. I actually wanted to take a couple of steps back on just making sure we're level setting on who MuleSoft really is nowadays and where we're focusing offerings, and importantly, provide some context on why we've invested in the partnership with MarkLogic and why some of those combinations that Clay alluded to, bringing the operational and analytical flows closer together, are particularly important for master data management. And so, if people working on this space, we've seen really historically a couple of different patterns. So one centralized in a data hub, and the second decentralized, where data is mastered or quality is added at the application level. We feel strongly that combining the two and creating this API-led approach of master data management really allows the data mastering to happen at whatever level makes sense within kind of an application stack, and to really drive a lot of very, very interesting applications, such as the ones that the Avodua's team talked about, of not just looking at data mastering for an analytical perspective, but really driving data-driven decisions and applications from that. So to jump in, for those of you who have seen Salesforce presentations, this is a standard of please reminding you to make purchasing decisions based on currently available technology. MuleSoft has made a couple of very interesting recent announcements that I'll touch on, which will be coming to the market more concretely in the next few months. But to take a step back, the digital transformation journey that's been talked about is really the core of MuleSoft's mission of helping our companies around the world and across industries connect any systems and completely transform their business. We've seen very clearly that integration and APIs are at the core of really any digital transformation going forward, and it's why we put such a big effort into supporting our customers in that flow. And we've obviously been lucky enough to be trusted by some of the largest and most advanced organizations around. And since we've become a part of Salesforce a couple of years ago, we've only seen that innovation accelerate as well. And so through that, we believe, we know we are supporting innovation really across four key dimensions that allows companies to innovate at scale. One, the most relevant for today's discussion, is obviously the integration of applications and data, making it easier to create that data hub vision, especially in the new world we face today, where all of our customers' data is no longer sitting around in internal databases. It's sitting around in web-based applications and internal databases. It's been managed by third parties, such as the third-party data case that Vaudois team highlighted. So all of that really is driving a key need to change the way that people think about integrating their data. So just as our customers are modernizing their data management layer with a MuleSoft, they're also having to rethink their integration approach because of how customer data is now spread out, so much more spread out, and needs to be accessed in so much more flexible ways through APIs. But then that brings us to then this new opportunity really of APIs as products as well. So the most innovative companies digitally transforming or offering those APIs both to their end customers or to internal customers to drive higher productivity. So creating better interfaces between those. And that's all with the goal of driving automation and process efficiency. And then finally, the last element that we see companies leveraging in best practices is there is a ton of innovation out there in the ecosystem, third-party companies, simple examples. Nobody is building their own address validation service anymore. They're using public sources outside in the ecosystem. And so bringing that ecosystem of innovation into an organization and contributing back to that same ecosystem to drive further partnership organizations is really key for our customers to really achieve that scale of innovation. And to achieve that, obviously, there are a number of key technologies that would be needed. So ranging from data integration to API management. And so, instead of having this issue of bringing all those technologies together from different vendors, what MuleSoft offers is really that single platform covering everything from microservices and universal API management through traditional service bus architectures, all the way through to data synchronization and application integration. And for those of you who are familiar with MuleSoft, you've even seen us very recently move into the citizen integrator space to allow further innovation to happen in the line of business with less technical users, and also move into the RPA space to really fill out our hyper automation vision of helping bring together RPA, APIs, and automation. So very, very interesting time, exciting for our customers. But to take a drill down now to the master data management and third-party data topic, and just to comment a bit on what we see a little bit more from the operational or application side. MuleSoft tends to be used, at least initially, in that application integration space. And so if we look at a different angle from what has been discussed before, which has been mostly analytical, and pivot our view to maybe more the operational or application side, what we tend to see a lot, and this is just an insurance example, but we see the same in retail, in banking, in healthcare, on the operational side. When it comes to, for example, in insurance, calculating a risk or pricing a policy, we see a lot of companies taking third-party data. These examples are common in the US, and obviously each market has specific ones. These all tend to be services that are now available as SaaS services that offer API interfaces to pull data from. Those tend to be hardwired straight into the policy administration system or whatever core system you have, because those have been originally built from an application or a particular business problem perspective, which in this case would be just calculating risk. The problem that faces is leaves a lot of opportunities really unexplored. It leaves that data needing to be reintegrated in a different way with a different tool, for example, for analytical purposes. It makes it very difficult to use in real time and to scale out the processing of that. As the Vaudois team highlighted, nobody is using one or two third-party sources. They're out there using 25, 30 different sources that need to be reconciled, where companies need to think through error management. If a certain data source doesn't come through, how do I then, for example, make a decision such as pricing a policy downstream? It also means hardwiring like Clay alluded to, makes things quite brittle. So if I see a new, more innovative data provider out there, I can't easily switch them out without a long integration process and thinking about all of the downstream impacts. And for our discussion, obviously, it leaves the risk of not having access to that data through these same integrations for analytics and mastering that data down the road. So Clay's already alluded to this. We feel from the vision perspective or the architectural perspective, having this 3-tier API-led architecture that my colleague Thomas will drill down into more in our session in a couple of weeks is really a key way to helping achieve that, to take some of that business logic out of the operational applications and put it, where it really belongs at the data processing layer. It gives people more flexibility for swapping data providers in and out. And again, there's so much innovation out there in the wider ecosystem space that just keeping up and leveraging all these innovative, be it fintech, health tech, insurtech services, you name it, there's so much innovation out there available. So that decoupling that from applications is really key to driving that innovation. It also, allows us to provide much more advanced monitoring, metering of those, and saves money because a lot of these services are, priced based on API calls, and so doing more intelligent, only when needed querying of those really allows us to help drive down costs of leveraging those for our customers. But for us, importantly, back to Clay's image that he was using before for this particular discussion, it also allows us to very simply place an additional mastering layer really within that architecture. And as Clay was alluding to, this really, we believe, allows us to bring together much more efficiently the operational use of that data with the analytical use of that data, both because we've focused on helping integration, downstream of the MarkLogic layer. So making sure that all of your SaaS applications, internal and external, can be integrated easily into the MarkLogic data hub. But just as importantly, feeding the downstream applications and exposing that to, again, internal or external parties, which becomes very interesting as far as really productizing that data. And ultimately, in several cases, we see really building a business and a business justification much more efficiently. So it's not just about the traditional data quality and customer 360 view from an operational cost savings perspective. It's really an opportunity to create API-based data products to put out to the wider market. And so this architecture really allows us with MuleSoft broad capabilities, as I was mentioning, to bring together the systems of record together with Data Hub in a way that's kind of hard to do with any other single technology, because as I mentioned before, they're either focused on the analytical side or they would be focused on purely the application side. And so again, we're very excited about the work we continue to be able to do with the MarkLogic team. A few links here as well to find out more. And as I said in the session on the 28th, one of our architects will be doing a much deeper dive on that MuleSoft architecture and how it can really be used in your environment. So thanks very much for your time, and happy to take any questions either here or in follow up later over email.